review. While they are figuring out how to connect a computer to the projector, I will talk to you informally and ask you a few questions instead of you asking me questions. Did all of you have fun this weekend? Show of hands. We tried something different in design this year. We had a lot more judges in first round judging. A few of you might have noticed that. We had up to 9, sometimes 10 judges in each queue. Did you all like that idea? Was it a good idea? Anybody not like that idea? Was it a bad idea? Okay, good. The informal poll that I did, talking to a lot of the students individually, indicated to me that we got a lot more knowledge transfer to the judges with more team members and more judges. And I think that we're going to try and continue this in the future. It's an idea that really worked this weekend. And I liked it. I hope you all liked it as well. Did all of you get feedback from your design judges? Did anybody not get any feedback? Come and see me afterwards and I'll give you feedback, okay? We make great efforts to get really qualified judges here in Germany and tell them that they not only have to be here on Friday to do a bang-on job of design judging in first round and then Thursday for electric, but they also are required to be here afterwards and personally meet with you. This year we also tried something different. We took your score sheets and we made a point of handing them back to you so that you could refer to the notes that the judges took on your score sheets, and hopefully that input will help you in years to come and help you develop a better car next year. That's the goal. More knowledge transfer from design judges like us to student engineers like you. I would like to remind all of you that the only difference between you as student engineers and me as a design judge is about 5 years of experience. After you graduate and you get on with your dream job, whether it be working for Porsche or BMW or wherever it is that your dreams take you, think about giving back to Formative Student Germany and coming back and volunteering as a design judge. We would love to have you back as a part of the family. And it takes a really special person to be a design judge. You not only have to be a really superb engineer, but you've got to have very good communication skills, people skills, treat the students with a very high amount of respect. And it's a very admirable ambition for the design judges to want to have to do this. So I would welcome all of you to come back in several years and see us and volunteer your services and give back to the students that are coming up and as student engineers in a few more years. I see that we've got a projector running. Maybe Pat will even figure out how to turn on his microphone.
That's done.
Hello, Pat.
So you're inviting them to join the dark side.
Yeah, I am
Come
indeed.
over to the dark side.
I am indeed. So, if you decide to cross over to the dark side and become a design judge, we might even teach you a few of the interrogation tricks that we have. And
KGB will get to us one day.
Okay, so we're here tonight for the design review. And what Pat and I have put together for you this year is we're going to cover new car testing. And it's a subject that I'm kind of passionate about because in the United States, as well as being the chief design judge for the Formula SA Michigan competition, I'm also what's known as an SAE industrial lecturer, which means you can go on the SAE's website and you can see me. I have a lecture listed. It's about Formula SAE and project management, all the different stuff that I talk to you about at competitions. And I go around and I visit various different schools and I deliver a 2-hour PowerPoint presentation that talks about a lot of the different things that go into the making of your car and how to manage your project in a very timely fashion in order to get maximum results. The fun thing about this for me is that I get to meet a lot of very bright student engineers and see what kind of resources they really have to put their cars together. The one thing that I've really noticed is that all of you have a lot in common, whether you realize it or not. The average team is about 20 members, and within those 20 members, there's usually about 3 or 4, maybe 5 core members, which are the ones that are going to be there at midnight and 1 a.m. working on the car to make sure that it gets done. So before all of you think that, well, gee, everybody's picking on me and I'm the only one that ever contributes to my car, it's kind of the way it works with most groups that are doing formula cars, formula student cars, okay?
No, formula cars.
Formula cars. Formula cars.
If you haven't spent an all-nighter, you're not doing it right.
That's right, absolutely. And if you think that it's kind of tough as a student engineer, I got news for you. It gets tougher as a professional engineer. The deadlines don't get any easier. Carol Smith had a saying, the race starts at 3 p.m. on Sunday. If you're not there, that's okay. The race starts at 3 p.m. on Sunday. It's all about meeting your goals in a timely fashion and hitting time deadlines.
It's more realistic than that, though. One of the things we get complaints about is that students will sometimes say to us that they've worked for a whole year on this project. They've lost girlfriends and their grades have gone down and they've got no money. Their best pair of jeans is impregnated with resin from the carbon fibre. You know the story. And yet we only give you 8 pages of a design report to submit, and then we talk to you about your car for an hour. And sometimes the students will say they think that's not fair, that they should have more than that. Well, I got news for you. When you go out there in the big bad world of business and you are dealing with a board of management, if your proposition, if your proposal is more than 1 page, you lose. And if you get 10 minutes in front of the board of management, you're doing a damn sight better than me. So realistically, we are preparing you not just as engineers for the real world, but we're also trying to teach you how to deal in the business world that you're going to have to deal with very soon. I noticed a couple of businessmen and people standing around here nodding sagely because that's the way it is.
Now, because I have the opportunity to go around and visit so many different schools per year, I will usually visit with up to 50 different Formula student or Formula SAE schools and teams within a 12-month period. I see a lot of things. Some of the things are really good, and some of the things really bother me. One of the things that really bothers me is safety. Once you get your car done, I mean, there's safety in the shop while you're constructing your car. Most people know enough to wear, safety glasses, protect your fingers from getting cut, wear gloves, all the other good stuff in the shop. But the thing that we're going to talk about tonight is new car testing and testing safety. And I've discovered that even some of the best schools don't follow good safety practices. So tonight...
Yeah. Steve, before we talk about that, I think there's something we better talk about. All of us design judges are actually a little bit sad this year because we lost one of our friends through the year. Craig, we all know who Craig was. Let me see, figure out his notes. Okay, so let's just stop for a minute and remember Craig Dawson. You all know who Craig was? Craig was one of our judges, one of our friends. He was always in there and help. He was a cheeky little bugger who was good fun to be with. He was a good design judge, and he was actually an excellent driver. I will figure out how it works. There we go.
Any students want to volunteer to run the PowerPoint today?
Yeah, they can do that. Yeah, this was Craig, sort of as we remember in the Oxford Brooks days. He was, as I said, he was a good friend of us. He was a good friend of the competition, and unfortunately, we lost him at a far, far, far too early age for that rotten cancer disease. So just stop for a minute and think that, we all know his voice.
So the design review that we're going to present tonight is new car testing and new car testing safety.
Okay, so you've done the best work you've ever done. Your team's pulled together fabulously. You've got all the bits. Fit and finish is perfect. Well, acceptable.
Yep.
Car's sitting there on the ground. It's all ready to go. Sitting on its tires. You even have 6 weeks in which you've got to test. Who had 6 weeks to test?
How many of you actually had 6 weeks of testing this year?
How many had less than 1 week of testing? Isn't that funny? How many had no testing at all? Steve mentioned Carl Smith a few minutes ago. Carl was one of our great mentors, and he had a lot of really good sayings. And one of the sayings that he had that suited this situation was, he said, in any project, the first 50% of the project will take 90% of the time. And the second 50% of the project takes
90% of the time. The last 10% kills you, as you all well know, because you've presented a Formula car at Formula Student Germany.
So, okay, you're all ready to rock and roll. What now? What do you do now? Well, you have to get the bugs out. Bugs are nasty. How do you know what that is? That's a good old Australian funnel web spider. And you see that? That's it. So somewhere these little bugs will bite you. And there's little venom spots in race cars that will bite you and bite you hard. Okay, welcome to our new design review. So we're taking a slight departure, we're going to talk about safety. Why? To avoid that. Apologies to the global racing or Oregon people who are here, but that was a bit of a sad situation for them a couple of years ago when they get the dreaded meatball flag. If the car breaks, you want it to break in testing. You don't want it to break on the track. So how do you get it to break in testing? Well, you test. So who didn't do any testing?
How many of you did no testing this year? There's more of that, because I've talked to a lot of you individually, and there were quite a few people that did not get a chance to test to the extent they would like to.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about testing goals, test site selection, that's important, test session preparation. You can't just, who tests by just going out and driving the car and think, oh, that feels pretty good, let's try this or let's try that. Yeah, that feels a bit better. Oh, it didn't break, it must have been a good test, let's go down the pub and have a beer. You really need to have something to do. Okay, test session procedures. You need to have a chart prepared before, a plan prepared of what you're going to do. A test session is not an ad hoc, let's go out and have a drive and see how fast we can go or how we can wear the tires out. And just on a topic slightly out, testing on worn out tires is probably the most frustrating thing you can ever do, and you won't learn anything. Good tip. Okay, safety, as Steve mentioned, safety is a hugely important issue. Testing safety, we all take chances. Don't be shy. Hands up anybody who's driven the car without a helmet on, because they're just going for a lap just to make sure it's all right. Come on. Who's driven the car without a helmet? Come on. Come on. Bullshit. It happens. Who's driven the car in a t-shirt or haven't put their race suit on? Yeah, now we're starting to see some people. Who's ever seen a Formula SAE or a Formula Student car catch fire? Ah, yes. Indeed. Okay. Okay, another thing is you need to take care of your drivers. A driver who's sunburnt, a driver who's sick, a driver who's dehydrated, or an engineer who's sunburnt, sick, or dehydrated, or hasn't had any sleep, is not really going to be very effective. So you have to look after them too. Testing needs planning and a test procedure every bit as important as you racing as the event here. Otherwise you don't learn anything. Yeah? We have a professional engineer sitting here in the front, Doug Gore, written about it for years. How important is testing, Doug? Yep, almost as important as going to the racetrack to race. And then, after you've tested, there's the matter of dissecting and understanding the data that you've collected and what you've done with it and what you're going to learn from it, and how you're going to use that data to improve the car in every way. That doesn't mean just going faster. Sometimes you go faster by going slower, particularly in Formula SE type competition where maybe if you dropped off a second a lap but gained a significant improvement in fuel economy, you could end up winning the event by going slower. Important to understand all this long before you overcome it. Okay.
Most student engineers believe that their newly built car will run correctly right out of the box. After all, I designed it, I oversaw the building of it, everything is perfectly manufactured.
What could go wrong?
It should be the best performing car ever. What could go wrong? Plenty.
Remember our old friend Mr. Murphy? Murphy's Law? We talked about him last year when we were here. How clever is this?
What's wrong with this picture? Anybody? No driver's suit. No helmet. No gloves. No safety gear whatsoever.
And the seatbelts look like they have been adjusted properly, and he hasn't got the right footwear on. He's in shorts. Crazy times, guys, crazy. Most important thing is safety, particularly with the driver. Most teams have had some sort of an accident or some sort of a mishap when they've been testing. Anybody want to give me a show of hands? Who's had a crash or a mishap or a failure or something bad go wrong when they're testing? Come on, tell the truth. Like almost every hand in the place goes up. Remember that little bit of venom on the spider's fangs? That's what gets you. What can we learn from this? I mean, if you test and you crash and you have a failure, that also is a huge learning experience. There's an enormous amount to learn. Back in 2003, the then preeminent American team, Cornell University, who we were pleased to have here today, had a crash 1 week before the event. When I say crash, I mean a serious, serious crash. So hopefully Dr. Al George is around here somewhere. Dr. George is the faculty advisor for Cornell, and he's going to run us through what happened, the before, the during, and the after. Step up, Al. Give the man a round of applause. Al is one of the legendary faculty advisors in Formula SA in the States, winner of the Carl Smith Award once, and various other things. And a good guy. A good guy.
I'd much rather be up here telling you about all the wonderful things we've done. But I think this is probably more important for your health and also your success with your car, because not only the driver, which is the people in general, which is the most important thing, including the people who might get hit by the car during an accident, but yeah, obviously your car as well. So I think we have some slides here. Okay, so this was 1 week, a little bit less than a week before the competition, and this is some of the damage you'll see here. This is the front of the car. This is, let's see, you can see the buckle to here.
The pedal box is all squashed over, and
the whole front of the car had to be replaced, because that meant all the front suspension attachments, etc. here. This is a shoulder bar back here, which is with a seatbelt attached.
So it was a big hit.
Fuel tank had split.
Fortunately, they didn't have a fire.
Yeah, we did not have a fire. We were very, very lucky. The driver was in a driver's suit, etc., but still, obviously, it made it even worse. The whole front suspension was basically gone, the whole front of the car. This is a week before the competition. Another view of it here. And we cracked the engine case, so we had to replace the engine as well.
Engine on stage.
So this was after we took apart it all, and we're looking at it. You can see how happy we are here. At this point, everybody thought maybe we weren't going to compete at all. So we had to decide what to do. So I don't know if I'll say more about that now or later. Okay.
That's your juice.
Yeah, all right. So basically what we did, everybody was very, very discouraged. We figured we weren't going to go to competition at all. And then after sort of an hour or two of that, we basically got a pencil and paper and started making a list of things that had to be done in order. And it was exam time. A lot of students got very poor grades in those exams because they did this instead of studying for their exams. We just made a list and we started working on it night and day, and we got it back together again. So that's something, unfortunately, we just did before this competition too. We knocked off the whole left-hand side of our car in testing a student car earlier.
I didn't know that.
Okay. Anyhow, so I want to just talk about, what causes an accident like this. So one of the things in all human things that people do who are halfway sensible, you have various safety things. A parachute always has a safety parachute, etc. And basically, usually you can sort of tolerate any one thing going wrong in almost any human endeavor that you're working on. Most people think about the fact of all the individual things that can go wrong, and they have some way of getting through it, surviving, shall we say, at least. May not be what we'd like to have happen, but surviving it. In this case, we had a number of things go wrong. First of all, we're in Ithaca, New York, which has a lot of snow in the winter, and the parking lots that we use, we have to shovel them off sometimes, and to shovel the snow off, and then a lot of salt and sand is put on the thing. This was after the season was over, but there was still sand around, and we had swept the course. We have a rule we're supposed to sweep the course, but the fellows who swept the course that day just gave only a small runoff area. Instead of having a long runoff area, 10, 20 meters, they just kind of swept it a certain amount and quit.
But they only swept where they were going to race.
That's right, only where the car was supposed to go.
Who's done that? Who's only cleaned the track where you're actually going to drive?
Nobody's admitting that. Okay. All right. The driver wasn't really feeling very well, and we didn't want him to drive, and other people were driving because he wasn't feeling well. We were adjusting suspension settings, but he was one of our good drivers. And he came around, and he even had a little bit of a fever, but he said, "Oh, I'm feeling fine. I'm just going to take 2 laps, and I'll be just fine." So,
what lap did he crash on?
Crashed on the second lap, of course. He felt it out a little bit, thought he was feeling pretty good, and decided to give it that one quick lap to see how it was going to do. And anyhow, he went off. Now the next thing, I guess, yeah, we're not really sure what happened. It's very hard to determine. Like the crash that happened to us last week, we don't exactly know what happened either there. There's some kind of driver error, or maybe a mechanical, it's hard to tell. Well, last week we're pretty sure. This one we weren't sure. We always use a slide throttle, and basically in the design event every year, the judges told us we shouldn't use slide throttles. And we thought, at least up until this point, this crash here, we knew how to design a slide throttle that did not get jammed with dirt and low friction, etc. We'd used it for years and been very happy with it. However, after this accident, we tried to put the pieces together, and the fellow who wasn't feeling very well either, but he insisted that he had lifted off, and with the throttle, we could hear the throttle still going. And of course, what happened was he got off the line. The throttle, for some reason, when he lifted, didn't lift. Got on the sand, and it's amazing how slowly, how you keep going the same speed on sand. It's a very ineffective braking medium.
It almost feels like you accelerate.
It almost feels like you accelerate, especially when maybe you are. And it feels like being on ice, basically. And the car just went into a curve, and you saw the damage from right into the curve. Luckily, the people were up on the curve, which is one of our rules, which I'll get to in a minute, and so nobody got hurt. We got stopped by the curve.
You still use slide throttles?
No, we don't use slide throttles anymore. So here are some of the things. You want to cover this? Okay, here are the rules we use at Cornell now. Is first of all, mandatory bolt check. It's amazing how many times people say, it's getting late, it's getting dark. We just get out there quick, we don't do a bolt check. So they want to do that, but we have a rule, you have to have a bolt check. And that means wire check, etc. Mandatory driver clothing and helmet, check of fluids. Unfortunately, we don't always do that. 2 engines this year, okay, because people didn't check the oil correctly. They didn't run the dry sump long enough to see how much oil is supposed to be in there. Okay, driver must be filling 100%. You can see where that rule came from. And we never let new drivers in this car until they prove themselves in a single-speed car. And to everybody's satisfaction, they know how to drive, basically.
One of the things, like the driver feeling 100%, is something that I notice here is young engineers, young drivers, young mechanics who've worked all night for several nights. They're living on Red Bull. Yeah, that's when mistakes get made.
So if I understand you right, Dr. George, you have a single-speed Cornell go-kart that's a test vehicle for new drivers?
Actually, we have 2 of them, actually. Partly because they keep breaking down. They're hand-me-downs from people who didn't want them anymore. But yes, we have 2 of them. That's what we use, right? And a lot of people, actually a lot, we have people on the team who've never driven a car before. They'd like to drive the car. And in our policies, everybody gets to drive if they show they're competent. It doesn't mean they get to drive a competition, but they get to drive the car that they built. And And this, people from freshmen, you know, sometimes from countries where people basically don't drive. So some of them are learning how to drive at all first on the car. Okay, so we have to lay out the track. I think I have rules for coming up on that later. Yeah, okay, and the crew chief is responsible. One of the things we learned early on is that if you just say the team has to do this, then the team is sort of so big that you don't have anybody doing it. So we always have a...
Yeah, the buck has to stop somewhere. You need somebody in charge.
So every day of the week there's a crew chief assigned, and if the crew chief can't make it, the crew chief has to delegate it to another person who is then the responsible person. And you know, they will have to make sure that all this stuff happens. And we need to run off in all directions, swept, and check the surface out. There are parking lots that we use. People can dump oil on them, etc. So we walk the course when we set up the cones. Yeah, and you need to have a place where everybody can stand. As you might guess, with a new car, the whole team wants to see it run, especially. So we'll keep only the essential people out near the car. The other people get up on a curb or behind cars, or a little at a distance away. And we have rules about replacing cones, of course, the same with fire extinguisher, first aid kit, etc. And runoffs in all directions. We do the same rules that we have here about running the wheels off the ground, or a fully suited driver in the car on the course, basically. And some of this is more or less a repeat of it, so...
Straightforward stuff, wearing helmets and closed doors. Okay, flammables kept 20 meters away from the track, the cone setters stand at definite place. Talking here, when the course is very big, I guess you can't, well, you have to be able to allow the cone setters to go back and reset the cones, but under very strict rules, obviously, we've got for that. Additional rules when they're driving off campus. So you were talking previously about what driving on parking lots within the university campus. Now you're talking about off campus.
Yeah, we have difficulty finding places to drive of any size, but occasionally we get off campus, and then we have rules about making sure that the local police and emergency responders know that we're there, and that our students know how to get to them, what the phone numbers are. So that's part of the university's regulations for doing anything off the campus. Yeah, and that includes having cell phones, that have coverage. We're in upstate New York, kind of a rural area. Not every place will cell phones work, so we have to have ones that actually work at the place we're testing.
Do we have any questions for Dr. George? Okay, well, in that case, thank you very much, sir. Okay, back to whatever else is going on. Here we have a team test, okay? Does that look like you? Come on, does that look like you? What's wrong with the picture? Does this bother you? Can't see the light. Yeah. Does that bother you if you go whistling down there and say an A-arm brakes or something? What about the parked cars over the other side? That driver's going to go down and he's going to loop around, and there's parked cars and people, and there's a trailer there. All nasty, nasty things to hit. This is actually the University of Alabama from a couple of years ago. And this picture was taken literally seconds before something happened. The car sprung a fuel leak, caught fire. The driver was burnt, not badly fortunately, and limited people there while they treated the driver for burns and whatever he needed. That's what happened to the car. So needless to say, that team did not make the competition. Now, how would you like to be driving that car in your jeans and t-shirt?
Now we know by a show of hands that all of you have experienced some sort of a crash or mishap with your car. How many of you have experienced a fire with your car during testing? It was put out relatively easily. Yes. Okay. If you don't have a fire extinguisher or you exhaust your fire extinguisher, this is the ultimate result.
Anybody here has been in a fire? Remember this scene from last year? That happened here on this track last year. That's the Regensburg car. Had a fuel system failure, lit up like a bonfire. You know that 5-second exit rule? Let me tell you, when this happens, the driver comes out of there like a cork out of a champagne bottle. As you will see.
Is Julian here in the audience?
You heard Julian?
From Regensburg, Julian? Come on up.
Tell us what happened. Here he is.
This is Julian from the Regensburg team, and he's the guy jumping out of the car. We asked him to come here today because he experienced a bad fire and survived it. His fire suit was damaged, but his skin was not. So, how was it for you? You knew when the fire happened. You told me that you heard it, right?
All right. There was no time checking it. So the fire came beyond the firewall to the side, came up to the steering wheel, and there was no time to think about it.
Okay. What he had told me earlier was that as he was driving the car, he heard a woof. Okay. What happened was the fuel filler tube was very near the exhaust. It was insulated, but the exhaust burned through the insulation and then burned through the fuel filler tube, causing a massive gasoline leak. Okay? The gasoline ignited with a woof, and the fire wall on the car was not fire tight. There were gaps. And the fire came around Julian and engulfed his thighs and his torso because the firewall was not fire tight.
Tell us, Julian, how you removed the steering wheel.
I said there was no time removing the steering wheel, so I only wanted to get out of the car as fast as possible.
Can you get in and out of the car now without removing the steering wheel?
Yes, I can.
Oh, that's surprising.
I don't need to remove the steering wheel, or getting into the car, I don't have to remove it.
So it all happened very quickly. You didn't have time to think. You had to react quickly based on the training and whatever. Tell us, did you drive the car in jeans and t-shirt?
No, not yet. Safety first.
You've been through the fire and lived. Look, there he is in midair, flying. Julian, thanks. Good to tell us about this. As organisers and judges and various things, the fire thing does scare us a little bit. You know, we don't really let the cars go fast enough to have impacts generally which are big enough to cause severe injuries. But fires cause severe injuries, and when you're sitting on, 5 litres or 6 litres of a hydrocarbon fuel and it lights up and you're in the middle of it, bad things happen. That's why we want to reiterate the importance of, proper safety gear. Even think about, there may be some minimal or minimum safety suit requirements and whatever, but nobody said you can't do better than that. Nomex underwear and all those sort of things, all healthier. Can you imagine what would have happened if Julian had maybe crashed the car and had caught fire, and he couldn't get out of the car so quickly, if he hadn't leaped out of the car in 1/10 of a second or whatever it was, and was in there for 10 or 15 or 20 seconds before the fireman could get the fire extinguisher across and get him out of the car. What the proper fire protection does is it buys you time. It buys you time. Exposure to the high heat can kill you. I mean, there's no nice way to say it. It can kill you. So, it's important to buy time. It's also important to remember the time from the other side of it, and that is that when you're testing if this stuff happens, you really do need to have trained people standing with fire extinguishers who know how to use them. Let me ask you this question. Do you go to all your practice sessions and your events with a fire extinguisher? Of course you do. I'll now ask you a question. Raise your hands, anybody who has ever fired off a fire extinguisher and knows how to use it. Not that many. All the people who have been there with a fire extinguisher and haven't used it, you know, it is hugely important. It's a tool that has to be learned how to use. It makes an awful lot of noise. Some people get scared. You know, a CO2 extinguisher makes one hell of a racket when you fire it off. But that's important. How many of the teams actually do firefighting training for each team at the beginning of the year? Not many hands up there.
Okay, firefighting training is actually available. In the States, at least, all we have to do is go to our local fire department and request training with a fire extinguisher. Our local fire departments will usually set a controlled fire and teach you how to use a fire extinguisher properly and put the fire out. I don't know how it works here in Germany or in the European Union, but I'm guessing that this type of training is probably available at either very low cost or free. You just have to ask your local fire department for assistance and see if you can get the training. Okay? Now,
it is important too, because if you haven't been trained, and I know this from experience, the tendency is to fire the extinguisher at the fire that you can see, whereas that's not how you fight the fire. You may not actually be able to see the source of the fire because it's invisible, it hasn't actually started to blow yet. But the way to fight the fire, of course, is to starve the source of the fire of oxygen. So firing the extinguisher into the flames does absolutely nothing, and yet that's what we tend to do if we haven't been trained.
the people on your team that are designated to respond to the fire with the fire extinguisher also have to be properly dressed. No shorts, no nylon t-shirts that melt to your skin, okay? You have to dress responsibly. You also have to be in shoes that you can run in, no open-toed shoes or flip-flops or that kind of thing. You've got to be prepared to respond, get the fire extinguisher to the car, and save your driver's life. It's critical.
I have a burn on my arm, actually, from having a nylon shirt melted into my arm through something. It hurts like hell. Okay. How many teams have finished their car, finally got it to run late at night, maybe in the early hours of the morning, and thought, hey, let's give it a run? Come on.
From my experience, I think that everybody raises their hand on this. Every team that I've ever talked to has always gotten the car done late at night and taken it out for a late night run.
Yep. That's Carleton University a couple of years ago. Okay, so they take the car out in the middle of the night. You notice you can hardly see him, but the driver's sitting in there in a t-shirt and no helmet, and he's probably got shorts on. And they go for a sprint. Now they're probably all tired. They're probably all full of Red Bull or Coca-Cola or something. Everybody's excited, can't see. Surface hasn't been prepared, and off they go. So what happened? That's what happened. Crunch. Back to the drawing board. Wouldn't it have been smarter to wait till morning, have had a night's sleep, do it all in the light of day when everybody was fresh? Because they had to do it again anyway. The car was smashed, bent, torn up. Incidentally, you notice one of those lovely rod ends is broken out here. We won't talk about that this time.
One of Dr. George's rules at Cornell is the driver has to be in good physical condition. That doesn't mean driving the car at 2 a.m. with very little sleep and lots of caffeine.
Okay, time for a gratuitous plug. We'll change the subject a little bit. Who's going to Claude's seminar?
Anybody going to the Optimum G seminar tomorrow? Okay, a few hands.
Yeah, I think he has a couple of slots still open. So if people want to go, it's at Stuttgart. Karlsruhe. I'm sorry, Karlsruhe. Yeah. So if needs be, get onto the web, find the Optimum G website. Claude, of course, is a friend of ours. He comes and judges and gives some of your poor guys hell. It's all right. Certainly, his seminars are worthwhile.
How many of you know who Claude Ruel is?
He's almost as famous as Panther Rat. Yeah. Okay. Plug finished. Okay. I said we'd give him a plug. So there we go. All right. Back to the presentation. Testing goals. Okay. What are your goals?
Once you've got the car on the ground, what do you want to do? What's the most important thing that you want to do once the car's running? Anybody? I would try and baseline the car. Probably one of the first things I want to do is make sure the engine starts, runs, and I can put the car around at a relatively low speed and check to make sure that nothing's falling off the car or braking. And then you ease into the test program and start with lateral acceleration, skid pad testing in both directions, and start working into baselining the car and then figuring out what you need to change on the car to improve the performance of the car.
You also need to do some system checks. Make sure your gear change works properly. Make sure the suspension doesn't hang out when it operates and you steer, and your roll bars respond properly. Because often these things that seem to work perfectly well in the garage don't work when you get them on the track. You should do some easy testing to settle the car down, and then do a very comprehensive nut and bolt check. Watch for fasteners which may be necking out or being damaged. Very important to get that car settled before you start leaning on it. I've seen guys fire the car up, drive it out of the pits the first time, and it's 45 degrees sideways around the first corner. Everyone's saying, oh, our car's good. That's a real good way to destroy your car.
Before you even start the car and actually attempt a baseline test program, there are several things that you're going to want to check on the car and make sure that it's straight. Make sure that you understand the adjustments that you've built into the car. How many flats of a turn on the spring preload adjuster does it take to raise the car by, 2 millimeters or 10 millimeters? All of this stuff should be very well documented to you so that when you're at the test track, you aren't wasting a lot of time guessing, well, if I turn it 2 flats, does it change it 10 millimeters? Or if I turn it 10 flats, does it change it 2 millimeters? This is the kind of stuff that you should have very well documented from your design phase of your car so that you make use of this testing time to its maximum potential.
This is the stuff that I call the mental sledgehammer. You have all the time in the world back at the university or at your workshop or whatever to sit down at the computer and start to work on the 0.5 millimeter here or the 4 hectopascals there. But when you're out testing, you have to do things in big chunks so that you actually get a response. But you need to know what those big chunks are going to do. That's what I call like a mental sledgehammer. You can always come back. There is no point in going out and wearing out a set of tires, incrementally changing the toe out by 1/10 of a millimeter at a time. You throw a big chunk of toe at it and see what happens, then come back to it. Because when the time comes and you've got to adjust the car on the racetrack, you should then be able to look to your setup notes and very quickly see what the result of an adjustment in any given direction is going to give you.
Now, you're building this car for a Formula Student competition, and the competition has segments to it, dynamic segments. So one of the first segments you're going to do is the acceleration run or the skid pad run on Friday morning. So this is a test that you're going to want to conduct at your university and baseline the car and try and improve the performance in these 2 different segments as much as you possibly can. Once you do these 2 elementary tests, straight line acceleration, followed by braking to ensure that you can pass your brake test, you'll then transition to skid pad to make sure that you can do lateral acceleration as best you can. It's only after you do this that you start advancing into more of an autocross type of a course with transitions from left, right, left, straight transitions. Okay? It all builds on itself. So a good team will have a point strategy. You'll know what strength you built the car to, and you'll know what it's going to be really best at. You either built the car for best acceleration, or best lateral acceleration, or best braking, or all of the above. And then you build on it from there.
Tell me, how important is the engine in this thing? Steve just mentioned best longitudinal acceleration and best lateral acceleration. Is Formula Student an engine formula?
Is it a horsepower competition, or is it a handling competition?
What do you think?
Horsepower? Handling? Of course it is. It is a handling competition.
So, is horsepower or the delivery of the horsepower important to the handling of the car? In other words, can you make the car peaky and difficult to drive? Can you make the car with a lot of horsepower, top-end horsepower, but it's got no torque down low to pull off corners or to pull out of the chicanes or whatever? Of course you can. So engine development shouldn't really be, you know, Luigi the tuner gets at it and extracts another 10 horsepower out of it, and you rev it to 15,000 revs. There are racetracks and times and places where that's all important. You know? Jeff over here will tell you that you build a few of them, haven't you, Jeff? Did you tell me 22,000 revs once? This is Jeff. Everybody know Jeff Governor? Jeff is another one of our design judges, and Jeff, you've drawn up an engine during your time, I think.
Yeah, obviously I've propelled rather a lot of world champions and that on 4 wheels, 2 wheels, and in boats.
Yeah.
But
And Indy.
Indy, yeah, a few times at Indy. I think I've won it 21 times. So,
He's so modest.
but when you look at engines, one of the things as a design judge that I find quite interesting, if you look at, say, an ignition map, in the days of distributors, all that the ignition did was ramped up in advance and then sat there. It was like tabletop mountain. Now I get shown maps that look like the Himalayas gone mad. Where's the sense in that? When they're talking about torque and torque delivery, what we're trying to do is give the driver something where if he opens the throttle, he knows what percentage torque he's got. If he locks his foot there or holds a twist grip on a motorcycle there, that's the torque he's at. He doesn't want it to jump around every time it moves another 10 RPM or 50 RPM.
But Jeff, I've read in the magazine that if you put a bigger throttle body on the car, it'll go faster.
Well, depends how much air you can breathe. Because
we have a 20mm restrictor.
That's what I mean. Back to the discussion on throttles earlier. Slide throttles, which Mr. George was talking about. I had a famous incident at Silverstone. Jackie Stewart accidentally fired his extinguisher during a warm-up for a Grand Prix. So they airlined it all off, blew it all out. He then left from pole position, headed for first corner. He drew black stripes off the start. He then drew black stripes into the first corner because the engine was still lit and he was on the brakes locking the fronts, and that's where he hit the wall.
Because the extinguisher powder had jammed the slide throttles.
So then we moved on into Formula One with barrel throttles. And then I get asked to do the RL engine for Oldsmobile, the GM project for the RL.
IndyCar engine.
Yeah, IndyCar. And on that one, they said, what are we going to have? We want barrels. I said, there's no way I can stand up in court in America and explain why the barrels are stuck. Because if I've got a gap at a couple of inch radius, it's going to stick. I think I'll go back to this thing that was a marvellous invention. You take a very small shaft, you put a penny on it, and you think of a marketing name called Butterfly. And to make that as good as a barrel or a slide, all I have to do is roll the air around it, so it doesn't know it's there.
So that's a CFD.
Yes.
You know, you can all drive CFD programs, and yet we look at all these monkey motion, gear-driven barrel throttles, slide throttles, and whatever. Are they worth the money, Jeff?
Well, they're interesting and they're a challenge to develop, but at the end of the day, what you need is a right-sized butterfly. You don't want one that at 10% open is all the air you can get through 20 millimeters.
Oh, so a big throttle body doesn't make you go faster.
No, you want one where you're getting to about 80 odd degrees or 85 degrees before you're on the orifice. Then the driver's got control over the whole range.
And that control relates to the handling we were talking about before.
It might just do that.
So engine torque upsets the ride and handling of the core?
Well, if you watch men on motorcycles, you'll see it really in good thing. When I was asked to win World Superbikes for Ducati, they had a torque curve that was like the Himalayas. So I just smoothed it so that Fogarty could find the throttle angle, that drifted the bike and then just sit there with a frozen wrist. That way you win. And that's what you need on your handling circuit. You don't want to be doing a figure eight with your foot doing this, trying to work out what the answer is.
Nobody knew what the question was, but you didn't know the answer. Thanks, Jeff. So, although it's not a horsepower competition, the delivery and the shape of the curve actually relates very, very much to the handling and the setup that you're going to do when you're testing. So, the testing goals will happen back at the dynamometer if you're lucky enough to have something. You should be looking for drivability and the ease of the driver to be able to drive the car in the testing phase, and of course in the competition phase, but certainly in the testing phase, because otherwise the driver just gets confused. How important is the test site? Again, Dr. George talked about that.
I've seen universities use a wide variety of different places to test their cars, from driveways to parking lots to airports with airstrips.
To streets outside the university.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that too. Just about anywhere you might imagine driving a formula car, I've probably heard of it so far. When you're testing your car, you want to select a test site that's got minimum obstructions. So if you're using a parking lot at the university, make sure that it doesn't have concrete pillars where the light poles are. Make sure there aren't any cars parked in the parking lot. It would be preferable to have a parking lot with no curbs. And as Dr. George stated, you want to clean the parking lot, not have any debris on the parking lot.
What about if it's a parking lot that's used by the students as a shortcut to come and go from class or to their cars?
One of the things that most good teams do is they'll take extra students that are on the team, they'll position them around the perimeter of the parking lot, and they'll block off pedestrian access or bicycles or scooters or mopeds or whatever else might be walking through the test area. One of the things that they will absolutely do if somebody gets inside the perimeter is the driver is briefed to stop the car immediately. You don't want to risk hitting something that encroached into your test area.
And it's okay to park your car and trailer and stuff on the test area so that it's close by when you need to have bits to and from the car, isn't it?
Yeah, all the test equipment that you have should be off to a safe area that's out of your way, that can't possibly be hit in case of a mishap.
Okay, so that's your site selection. Okay. What about preparation for the test session? We've actually covered a bit of that. The necessity to do your homework, to determine what you're going to test, and what often happens, I see, is teams, or all sorts of teams, they go to test. They have a set-down regime of what they're going to test, and when they get there, it very quickly degenerates into attempts on the lap record. You know, all about going fast or trying to go fast, and your whole testing regime just goes out the window.
Test session preparation means making a plan. You should have a very clear idea of what you want to test. Write it down, plan your time accordingly, and then go to the test session and execute the plan. It sounds simple, but most of the teams that I talk to don't have a plan and then don't execute the plan. That means they don't use their time effectively, and they waste a lot of time.
Don't learn anything. They learn how expensive tires are. That's what they learn. Procedures?
Well, the first procedure you're always going to want to concentrate on is safety. Safety should be first, okay? You want to make sure that you don't have anything the driver can hit. You want to make sure that you've got proper fire safety precautions that are in place. You want to make sure that you've got cell phones that operate, that you can call emergency services if you need to. There's a pretty good long checklist of these kinds of items you can create quite easily. Make the checklist and stick to it.
Actually, Dr. George had a good rundown earlier. The Cornell rules are very well worth emulating. Safety we've spoken about. What about this business about taking care of your drivers? And the rest of the crew?
Your driver should be in good health, no matter what. If you're a responsible driver, you aren't going to be out drinking late the night before and try and drive a critical test the following morning with a hangover. You owe it to your team to be in peak physical condition, not hungover.
But it's okay if you smoked a joint, isn't it?
Yeah, it's none of that stuff. This is a professional effort that you're after. You've got lots of man hours involved with students and student time, and you're taking away from studies to do this. You owe it to yourselves to give your best effort to this. It's no drugs, no alcohol, no nothing.
I just figured something else. Is that why they call it dope?
Maybe it is.
Okay. What about the rest of the crew? If you have the crew out there in the baking sun, you don't have cover, they're getting sunburned, they're getting dehydrated, does your race engineer make good decisions?
The answer, of course, is no.
Is he able to process the data properly?
No.
Okay. Is it likely that he's going to enter GIGO into the computer that they're using to log stuff?
Yep. GIGO is garbage in, garbage out, and there's a very good likelihood that it'll happen if you're sunburnt or undernourished with not enough water. You have to take care of the rest of the team members, and you should have a good plan in place to do that. So, food, water, a place to get out of the sun. If you've got trees at your testing site, set your test facility up under a tree, or bring a canopy with you to get out of the sun. You've got to stay out of the sun.
Yep. Okay. And then when it's finished, you all go home and say, well, what we'll do is we'll meet on Monday and we'll have a bit of a talk about what we found out, do we? Or do we try to debrief immediately?
The best teams do not have one or two magical data acquisition people that mysteriously do something with the data and figure it out or do whatever it is they do with it. The best teams have the data distributed amongst all team members. Enable everybody. So the data acquisition system that you've got should be on every team member's computer, because there are some segments of the data that are critical to every team member that you've got designing parts on the car. There shouldn't be anything mysterious here. Every team member should be able to have access to all data and interface with other team members on critical systems. So if I'm designing the brakes, I have to be able to walk over here and talk to the guy designing the suspension, because guess what? My brakes are connected to his suspension, and vice versa, okay? So what I do affects him, what he does affects me, and we both look at the same sets of data and make intelligent decisions because we both have clear access to the data.
The same data. Something else I was just thinking, we're not young as these kids anymore. Our memories are starting to get a bit fuzzy. The story about jars on the shelf and they fall off the back. So these young guys, they wouldn't need to keep notes and stuff because they'd remember all the details of them?
Oh, yeah. Notes are critical, okay? And I don't care if you take notes in your notebook, your electronic device, your cell phone, your smartphone, whatever. You've got to take notes. It's critical to your success.
Actually, the best way is with a pen and paper, because the actual act of writing it down embeds it in your memory anyway. A notebook and a pen. How important is that, Doug? He's asleep. Doug, shh. In Austria last week, I saw Doug Gore fixing somebody's car at 3:15 in the morning. Guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
We're just saying, Doug, how important is it to keep notes at a test session? You, race engineer, you've done all this sort of stuff? The old Santiago dictum. Those who don't remember history or learn from history will remake the mistakes.
Doomed to repeat their same mistakes.
Okay. Does it matter if you take too much notes?
Not possible.
So it's not possible to take too much. Write it down. Write it down. Somewhere in those notes there will be one little nugget of gold, which actually could be the difference between you winning and losing the competition. And that's the truth.
That's especially important in a competition like this, where every couple years you have new team members that need to become familiar with the lessons of the preceding teams so they don't repeat earlier mistakes. You move forward with make your own new mistakes, but not repeat the old ones.
So you're talking about knowledge transfer from teams to team? That is actually critical. If you want to set up a dynasty within your university that is successful in Formula Student or Formula SA, you definitely need to have a knowledge transfer system that works very well. If you want proof, look at global Formula racing.
That's what Pat and I refer to as legacy information. So it's critical that the outgoing team this year, at the end of this competition, passes on the information that worked for them this year. Not only the good information that worked, but give the next year's team the bad information that didn't work so they don't pursue the same dead-end alleys. The most successful teams in Formula Student always pass this legacy information on from year to year to year.
Do you know what we've just done? We've given away Dr. George's secret weapon. Guilty? Guilty. Okay. All right. You also need to work out from your testing what the devil you want to do to go to the next step. You can't test everything and every feature in one. Anybody know how you eat an elephant? How do you eat an elephant? One spoonful at a time. That's how you test. One spoonful at a time. You can't eat the whole elephant, and you can't do the whole test. So you have to plan what your next step in testing is. So the testing becomes like building a wall. You put bricks in the wall starting from the bottom and you work to the top.
All of this test data that you're collecting in your testing program, the design judges also look at. So when you sit in front of us and try and explain your design to us, we're very interested in seeing how you validated what you theoretically thought the car was going to do. And it starts with test data and your interpretation of the test data, and this is what validates your design, and this is the key critical point to design judging. You're demonstrating to us that your idea worked, and it's in place on the car, and it contributes materially to the success and the best performance that that car can possibly achieve.
In other words, you're able to prove it. Okay, time for a little quiz. We're going to have some blindfold Formula SA racing, are we? Jeff's obviously got a word to say.
Just the importance of the book. 1994, we had a man called Schumacher in a Benetton. We had a brand new engine, only 11 weeks old, because that's all the time I've been given to do a new short stroke V8 for it. And we told him the engine life is a Grand Prix plus 6 laps, okay? So your entire qualifying and testing is 6 laps plus 1 installation lap. So Schumacher said, how on earth am I going to set up the car? And we said, you're not. Rory's going to do it out the book, okay? He's got all the optimum from all the testing that's gone on, and he'll just dial it in out the book. That won the first 5 Grand Prix that season. Schumacher was on front row of the grid, 3rd lap out the pits.
So keeping notes is important.
The notes mean everything.
Thanks again, Jeff. Wise on that.
Does anybody have any idea why we've got a blindfolded driver in the car on the screen? Any guesses?
We're going to blindfold racing. Actually,
Some of you have seen this before. You want to tell the rest of everybody what it is?
I think this is so that the driver can find those controls on his dashboard to kill the car and all that kind of stuff. Like,
what about if he knows how to get the steering wheel off and how to undo the seat belts and how to get out of the car? Julian would tell us, how much could you see when the car was on fire, Julian? Where are you? He's gone, has he? Yeah. How much could you see when the car was on fire? Nothing. Nothing.
Okay, so this is what we call the blindfold test. Any driver that drives the car or has the potential to be tested for driving the car has to be able to pass the blindfold test. He has to know where all the switches are and how to safely operate the car under the worst of conditions. This is the blindfold test.
We've looped back to safety. If I were running one of these Formula SAE teams, you know where you have the drivers practice getting out of the car in 5 seconds? I would have my drivers getting out of the car in 5 seconds, blindfolded. Any team ever done that? Whoa, good. There's one.
Awesome.
One out of several hundred.
We've got some people thinking outside the box here. Congratulations to you. Now, Pat, I got the 2-minute signal.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
The awards are going to start shortly, and we could go on that if needs be, but obviously we've got to wind it up. But we got 2 minutes. Anybody got any questions? Anybody want specifically something they want to ask?
They're not going to ask questions. They know the mama party's coming. Come on, Pat.
No, they know everything. They don't need to ask questions. Folks, thanks for coming. Hope you had an enjoyable hour while we talked to you and maybe learned something. We don't make any apologies for the subject being safety and testing, because, as I said earlier in the night, the thing that scares us as organisers or whatever is that we're going to burn one of your kids, and we do not want that to happen.
Yep, I second Pat's opinion on that. And I got to say thank you all for coming. Let's all go to the awards and have a nice mala party tonight.
And I'll come and do it.